Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Sober Bartender podcast, the show where we recover from life. I'm your host, Brandi Kelly. So today I want to go over a variety of topics, but the basis of this, the question that I want to ask is, why is alcohol a great connector? Like, why are there people in our lives that no matter what the circumstances, when we get together with them, it's on? And not only the why, but how do we address that and how do we move through that once we choose to either take a break? Some people are, want to take a break for health reasons or just to see if they can do it. There's always a variety of reasons. For me in the beginning, it was usually fitness motivated or shame motivated. So, like it's healthy to just take a break. And as my former sponsor would say, or my friend Kavai said, it's good to take a month off and just kick the tires. And I like that, like just see how everything's working without our great motivator, our social juice. So I remember it was mainly, it was sometimes in my 20s, but I feel like it was normal to just get loose in my 20s. But in my 30s, it felt like it was pretty often that people were telling me, or they were asking me, like, when are you going to get your shit together? Like, you really need to slow down your drinking. And so I found myself just trying to figure out, like, what is this normal drinking? Like, what's the acceptable amount? Because I didn't have a concept of that. So that may not apply to you, but for me, that was the case. Was like there was this happy medium that I could never reach. So yeah, when I would take a break, we'll go to like my 20s. When I would take a break, there were some people that were like, yes, I fully support this, especially like, my grandmas, if I would post it on Facebook or whatever, they were like, yes. But the people around me, like the people in the bar, they were either taking bets on how long I was going to last, or they were basically giving me like, you might as well have a drink now because we know it's not going to last. Like, why even torture yourself? Why torture us? Just get it over with now. And like, I didn't take offense, but it was definitely not, it wasn't supportive. It wasn't helpful. Because then when the idea would creep in that I did want to drink, then those voices were louder than the supporters rooting for me to abstain. Like, those became more of my evidence of why it made sense that I should drink. So yeah, I don't know if y'all have ever had experience with family and friends giving you shit for taking a break. But it's really, really frustrating. So why do we, like, I had people in my life that no matter what, I was like, oh, I don't want to work with so-and-so. Every time I work with him, I end up doing 10 shots. Like, I will go in with the mentality of, I'm not drinking today. And then I work with so-and-so. And by the end of the shift, I'm feeling good. And I never really questioned it. I just accepted it as fact. And then we all have friends in our lives to where that, no matter when we get together, like, it's on. Like, well, I can't do such and such because I'm going to see my cousin. And my cousin, anytime I see my cousin, we just, we get hammered the whole time. And I did deal with that with a client recently, to where I was like, there is also the other perspective that you can get together with this person and just not. And it seems so out of the realm of consciousness. Like it doesn't seem like a possibility because it's the opposite of what has always been. So I want to ask the questions of like, why is alcohol such a great connector? I want to talk a little bit about the stigma that surrounds taking a break and or quitting drinking, because stigma is a huge thing, even with people that are doing like a dry June or a dry January or a sober curious 7-day challenge. Regardless, it's like, oh, well, why aren't you drinking? Because, do you have a problem? Like, did something happen? Did you get a DUI? Like, did you, get an ultimatum? As opposed to recognizing that it is actually really bad for our health. It's bad for our mental and emotional health. It's bad for our physical health. Absolutely. There is nothing, like they say that red wine is good for you. There's nothing good for you about putting alcohol in your body. It does not do you any favors. There's plenty of research contrary to having a glass of red wine a day. Like, no. So I feel like in hindsight, the only people who did not support or encourage me had a problem themselves that they did not want to address. So I call that the mirror. Like when I say, hey, I need to slow down, but I drink exactly like you, or I drink with you, then that feels like an attack on you as opposed to a statement for myself. And people, everybody has their own timing of when they want to make that choice. It is absolutely a very personal choice. And I feel like when I make a choice for me, although I might want something for you, I would never try to impose that onto you. So when I worked with, that guy in my 20s, me taking a break was never like, I'm taking a break and you need to take a break too, because it's not about everybody else. It's about living in our own skin. And so much of what we do is influenced by these outside voices, by these outside opinions. And it can be really hard to stay true to what we want when there's so much acceptance around alcohol. Like everyone has accepted it as this normal thing. Like despite what it does to people's health, despite what it does to their families, despite the fact that, they get hangovers, they wake up with that anxiety. Like it was debilitating for me, the anxiety following a normal day of drinking. So it seems that, especially, I'm a bartender, so like heavier drinking is the norm. So whether it's social drinking, which is defined as people who have drinks in a social situation outside the home at least once a week, or whether it's heavy drinking or risky drinking, which is those who drink more than 6 drinks in one session weekly. Like that's the norm. That's the social norm. And we are tribal social animals. Like it goes back to the hunter gatherer, like people formed groups so that they could survive. So if our tribe engages in certain drinking behaviors, it's ingrained in us to support group cohesion. And that's conforming to group norms. So when you step outside that norm, whether it's right or it's wrong, whether it's better for you or whether it's worse for you, regardless, like you're disrupting the group cohesion that has been around forever. So according to the general social psychology and sociology, we basically evolved into this from early humans. So I mean, there are ways to address it. Like, we say that we don't care about what other people think, like that. I always say, like, other people's opinions of me are none of my business. But that doesn't mean that I don't care. Like, that doesn't mean that it doesn't affect me. Like, you absolutely, when that is your tribe, when that is your family, when that is your friend group, you don't want to be ostracized just because you're making, a health decision or a life decision. Like, so how do we address like melding and joining into that? And I feel like one of the first things that we need to know is that you need to, like I talked about a minute ago, is prepare to be undermined or questioned. Like, prepare for some pushback, but try not to take it personally, because I don't think that people necessarily want to see you fail. I think it's likely their own their own insecurity, right? Because like I said, if what you're doing you feel is excessive, then you must feel like what I'm doing is excessive. But what you're doing actually has nothing to do with what they're doing. So as far as like the second thing is getting together with those people, like, engaging in social activities with your social drinking friends or family, or, your clan or your tribe, is to have a plan before you head into a situation. Like, how are you going to address it? How are you going to let them know, like, what you're up to? How are you going to let them know, what to expect from you? Or, because my big thing was, I don't want anyone to change what they're doing just because I need to make a change. So, like, in 2019, I went into detox in late June, and then I got out and it was 4th of July. And so family reached out and was like, what do we do? Like, do you want us to just not drink while you're there? And I said, no, I want everyone to just do what they do, and I'll be in charge of me. And so I did go, and it was really awkward, but I was in like an extreme case because I was like a full-blown abuser of alcohol. So this is after a chemical detox, but I had a plan of how I was going to address it. If somebody offered me a drink, if somebody pressured me to drink, if someone questioned me, or if someone hurt my feelings with their opinion of me not drinking. And so then I wasn't so blindsided, and I wasn't overly emotional because I had anticipated that ahead of time. An important thing, like a third thing to remember, is to remember why you started. Like, keep in mind what your goal is, whether your goal is to not drink one day at a time, if your goal is to, get your health to a certain point, if your goal is to get on a stage to do like a fitness competition, if your goal is to, cut things out because you're doing a specific diet, whatever it is. Remember what your goal is, and keep that at the forefront of your mind when you're going into this social situation. Typically in a group, there's going to be somebody that does get it, whereas everybody else is like, oh, he's silly, I don't even know why he's doing that. Or she's she thinks she has a problem, but she's fine, she's just like us. Regardless of what there's usually someone that's like, hey, I get it, sometimes I need to kick the tires too. Look for that person in the group, so that way you have just some kind of safe base, because it can feel like an attack, but I feel like we think about ourselves a whole lot more than other people think about us, especially when it comes to not drinking. Like, they may question it, but typically, like, most people are thinking about themselves. That's just in our nature. So it may cross their mind and they may give you shit, but overall they're thinking about themselves. And then the fifth thing, one of the biggest things that I tell, especially newly sober people, is to have an exit plan. So not just wing it and not just see how it goes. No. Like when you go to a place, you want to make sure that you have your own vehicle. You want to make sure that you have, some kind of out if you're not comfortable with the truth of just, I'm ready to go. I'm feeling a little funky, or, I'm just over this. Have an exit plan, have an appointment set up, or have a movie ticket, have a something to where have a set time that you want to leave. And then if you get uncomfortable before that set time, then you're able to leave and you're not stuck there. Like I'm usually the designated driver because, I'm always sober. But then I'm tied to being at a location in a situation until the people are ready to go. And so in the beginning, I don't think I would have been able to handle that, not being able to leave at any time. Whereas now I'm comfortable to say, hey, I might run home and then just call me when you're ready to go. Whereas before, I just wanted to be accepted and I wanted to be a part of, more so than accepted. Like I still wanted to be a part of. I didn't want to feel like my life was over because I quit drinking. I didn't want to feel like there was places that I couldn't go or that I shouldn't go. Like I wanted the freedom to go and do what I wanted and just not drink. But I've learned now where I'm comfortable and where I'm not. Like when I first stopped drinking, I went to a concert and it was a very bad idea. I was not ready for that situation. Like I really wanted to see the show and all I could focus on is like the people around me and how annoyed I was. Like I did not enjoy that show like I would today. And a lot of times like being the non-drinker makes the drinker feel judged. Like people often, like when they hear that I'm sober, tell me about why they're not like me or how much they drink and why that's an acceptable amount. And I'm really not there to judge anyone. Like if someone has a problem, then I probably would desperately want to help, but I can't help anybody that doesn't want help. Like tons of people need help, tons of people, but it's the people who want help who will actually get help. So I don't force what I do on anyone in the bar, but I do offer it if anybody is interested. So I think that that's a big thing, is like it just automatically feels like this ugly mirror is being held up once you stop drinking, especially if you start bragging about how good you feel and how happy you are and how better it is. But I feel like it's important to live your truth. I feel like it's important to stick to your guns and know what's best for you. So all the little like cliche things do come into my mind of like, it's absolutely your life and it is short and it is precious. So if you feel moved or inclined to do something different with your life than spend every weekend getting hammered, I implore you to do something about it. Get uncomfortable, take into account, that you don't need to make assumptions. You don't need to take things personally. You can let people do what they do and just know that you're only responsible for yourself, for your choices, for your actions, for your thoughts. We get so wrapped up in other people's opinions and their ideas and their discomfort, but really none of it is that big of a deal. Like so many things have felt so big and felt like they needed my immediate attention and they needed me to do something. And one of the best things that I learned to do was the pause. And that means just sitting back and letting things play out and seeing that they absolutely did not require any reaction, any action. Like the world spins without my help. So while I feel like I need to do something, things are absolutely okay if I don't. So when it comes to this, like, I don't feel like anyone needs to understand, or they don't need to know, or they don't need to support me. If they are, my friends, my family, I want that, but I found that when I pause, if I just step back, if I take a breath, take a moment, take a day, take a week, things tend to work themselves out. And the hardest thing for me to learn to do is nothing. Like, that's the hardest thing that I've learned to do, is just sit back and know that when a situation feels overwhelming and feels intense and feels like, oh crap, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I don't have to do anything. And then when I sit back and I take that time, to step back, then I find that I absolutely know what to do once, like, the energy is settled. Like they say, you can't see your reflection. You can't see your reflection in, what's the saying? You can't see your reflection in, let me look. Okay, no one can see the reflection in running water. It is only in still water that we can see. And that's a Taoist proverb. And that makes sense. You look into a pond and you're, just churning it up, like your thoughts are just like swirling, and your ideas and your opinions and your judgments, and you're feeling hurt and your self-pity, big one. All those things are churning. But when you take that pause in, when you let things settle, and like I said, whether it's a few minutes or whether it's a few days or even a week, then once you let it settle, then you can actually see what you need to see. You can, then you just know what to do, and you know how to handle a situation. So, just to go back over, people think that you only stop drinking if you have a problem. There doesn't need to be a reason that people stop drinking, because although drinking has become so socially accepted, it's a legal drug. It's so socially accepted, but I mean, it's a social lubricant. It's not actually good for you, and it is a personal choice. Like, people think that it's so odd when you say that you don't drink. But nobody ever questions, like, why they do. Like, why is it so normal for you to drink every day? Why is it so normal for you to drink every week? Like, who decided that that was normal? Because your body doesn't need it. Like, it's not an essential nutrient. So it's just this thing that's evolved socially. And it's this great connector. But it's not actually normal. And it brings out the ugly in a lot of people. It lowers your inhibitions, and that, people like that. But I kind of like being afraid and doing things anyway. Like, I don't need my guard to come down, because I can be afraid and I can still grow my way through things. When I was drinking, I felt like I was fearless, but I think that everything that I did was motivated by fear, because I was so afraid of like feeling all my feelings and just facing life without taking the edge off, without an escape, without a release. But now I don't feel like I need to escape from my life. So something to this whole not drinking thing. So I talked to a handful of people that don't want people to know that they're not drinking. And I feel like this has a lot to do with the stigma, like I said, where people think that if you quit drinking, there's something wrong with you, because we've labeled alcoholics as diseased people. You have a disease, and if you can't drink ever. Whereas alcohol is an addictive substance. So it's very possible that if you take it, you can become addicted. And when you remove it, you can become not addicted without you being an addict or an alcoholic. But so many people don't want to say that they have a problem, because the diagnosis up to this point has been, if you have that problem, then you have it forever and ever and ever. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's just not what it is. Like, if we could just normalize gathering and doing the same things that we do, barbecues, cookouts, beach days, and not drinking, and not have it be this big ordeal, and not have it get so much attention, and not worry about what's in somebody else's cup. Unless we don't like the feeling of possibly being judged because we do things we wouldn't normally do when we're drunk. So we only want to do those in front of other drunk people. I mean, we need to drop the stigma, because there are a lot of people who are dying because they don't want to admit that they have a problem. Whereas if it could be normal, if we could normalize not drinking, normalize being that person that didn't have to lose everything and be jobless, and their family leave them, and normalize just everyday people not perpetuating that heavy drinking society, I think more people would be willing to join and be a part of that society without it having to be recovery, because they didn't break themselves down to the point where they have to rediscover themselves. So that being said, I have some good news. I have some good things. I'm meeting more and more people that are they're just not, and they're not making a big deal about it. They didn't start a podcast, and they didn't, delve into recovery like I did. They just stopped doing it, and they're watching their lives get better and better. And that I love to see. Not saying that there's anything wrong with recovery. I absolutely need recovery. But I love seeing people that stop well before the bottom. I love it. I love seeing people recognize and embrace that they don't like the trajectory of where their life is going, they recognize the issue and then they remedy it. They're not a victim to their choices and their actions. That's good stuff. That's really good to watch. So I do want to point out something that I have noticed at this point in my recovery journey. I'm not trying to stay sober. I'm not trying to not drink. And that was something that I was told that I had to watch out for. But I am a non-drinker. I just don't drink. That works for me. Now, there are things in myself that I still want to work on and heal. So I choose to participate in a program of recovery so that being me is easier. That makes sense. But yeah, I stopped fighting it. It's not a fight. I don't wish that I could drink. I don't think that there's one day that I will be able to handle alcohol. I have absolutely no desire. And I wish that on anyone and everyone who is struggling or battling. I just think whatever people are doing, if people are trying to better themselves, like my people out there that like you're just on that mission, you're doing the work, whatever that work is, you just want to feel better, you want to live better, you want to be happier, you want to be kinder, you want to react less, you want to have more compassion, you want to be kinder to yourself, you want to love yourself. That takes work for some of us. I think maybe for everyone, but I don't know. But my experience, it takes work. It did not come naturally to me. But the work is here, and we live in an age where you can find any information that you are looking for. We have this amazing internet. There's distraction there. There's ugly things on there, but there is so much community and connection and people who have an experience and a message, and they are putting it out there. And it's just a willingness to look for it. Like, I absolutely know that anything that I am looking for is already on its way to me. Like, because I have the desire for the knowledge, or the desire for the experience, or the desire for the feeling, the fact that I have that desire and I'm willing to take the action, those things are within my grasp. But everything relies on us. Like, it's all a matter of what are we willing to do to live the life that we want to live. For me, in the first majority of my life, it was easy to drink and to check out. And then that got harder. It got harder to exist. And then it got unbearable. So for me, it was die or recover or die. And I'm really glad that I chose to recover. And if you identify with that, I really hope you choose that too. And if you just enjoy this show, or someone, or you love someone that is struggling, I implore you, please, share the show with them. If you think that there may be something that that they need to hear, because I'm just here to share it. Like, I've received these things. I've been given a gift, and that's a new life. And I really want to offer that gift to anyone who is interested. If you're interested in loving your life, if you're interested in loving yourself, if you're interested in appreciating every day and feeling fully alive and excited when you wake up in the morning, shoot me a message. Like, let's talk, because I think I can help. And if you are struggling just to get through 10 minutes or an hour or a day, just keep going. Do not give up. Your life absolutely matters, and I'm really glad you're here. If you're enjoying the show, please take time on Apple or on Spotify to rate, review, follow, subscribe. That does help the show get seen in the algorithm. That helps it reach more people. And that's the goal, is just to get this to people, the people that need to hear it. I love you guys. I thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you next Wednesday.